Hey, this is Dan with Studio Blue. This is Pilates All Levels. Only optional props needed. A mini band if you have it. A TheraBand would work as well. Or no props is a-okay. If anything doesn't feel good in your body, don't push through negative pain, especially neck, low back, or joints. All that said, we're going to start on hands and knees today. Just have your props somewhere close by. And we're just going to mobilize the spine before we do anything else. So fingers spread fairly wide. And then arms pretty straight. And as you exhale, just start to round your spine. So nothing fancy, just round your spine, see what happens, see how it feels. And hold this position for a moment and take a couple breaths in through the nose and out through the mouth. And as you breathe in, really try to widen your upper back, your middle back. And on your next breath, it can be an in or an out. Start to open the chest, coming into a bit of extension. So the eyes will come maybe just past the top edge of your mat. The whole spine is in a little bit of an arc or extension, but your stomach is still supporting that. And as you breathe in and breathe out, see if you can create a little bit more movement in your upper spine and your middle spine. And the movement being just a little bit of extension, right? So trying to offload the upper back. And then this time as you round, start with your pelvis. So curl your tailbone. Allow your pelvis, then low back, middle back, upper back to round, chin drops, shoulder blades widen. And then again, start with the pelvis, releasing the tailbone, and then moving through low back, middle back, upper back, shoulders melt down, eyes come forward. So keep doing this motion. So starting with the pelvis, just moving one vertebra at a time. We're really trying to create some space in between the individual segments of our spine. So trying to find a little bit of dissociation. And even feeling the movement of the pelvis over the thigh bones. All right, and once you finish your extension, find the place in the middle. So we'll call it flat back. And as you exhale, you might actually bring the knees just a little narrower. And then as you exhale, reach your right leg out, keeping the toes on the ground for now. So just feel that the right foot is pressing into the ground, the stomach's in, there's a little bit of tone to the back of the glute. Bend it on in. And then left leg, flex the foot, slide it out with minimal movement to the rest of the body, and then bring it back in. So really just starting to warm up the joints before we start to go into a good amount of ab work today. And glute work. Yeah, so next time that the right leg reaches out, reach out and just lift up about the height of your body. So it doesn't have to go real high. Feel some tone in the back of the glutes. Feel the stomach still drawing in. Shoulder blades wide. And then lower that leg down, bend it in. And then left leg, reach it out, lift. Again, it doesn't have to be real high. Drop down, bend in. Try just one more each side. So right leg. Check that you're not swaying into the hips. And just end with that left. Nice. And then drop it down, feet together, knees open, take a child's pose or resting pose. Now your arms can be forward. If that irritates your shoulders at all, just bring those arms behind you. Palms turned up. Allow the shoulders to relax. Take a couple full breaths. And this is a nice place to just set a little intention for the hour. Might be to breathe a little deeper. Might be to take a pause where you need it. Or it might be to push through something uncomfortable. So whatever it is, right, just set that in the back of your mind. That's for you. Take a big inhale. Allow the ribs to expand. Let your belly even expand a little bit. And then take a really big exhale through your mouth. And just notice as you breathe out through your mouth with a little bit of force, your abs are going to draw in a little bit more deeply. And just take one more like that. Big inhale, let your ribs expand, the upper back, lower back, stomach, side to side, top to bottom. And then exhale really fully, really deeply. Good. Nice. And then roll yourself up and make your way onto your back. And we'll come on down. All right. So knees bent, feet flat, pelvis neutral. So not real tucked under, not real arched, just someplace in the middle. Hands clasped together, place them behind your head, elbows into your peripheral vision, and then take an inhale, let your chin drop a little. Exhale, curl the head and the chest up. All right, so this is your first ab curl in the new year. All right, just breathe into it. Lower the chest, lower the head. And again, nod the chin a little, curl up as you exhale. So feel the ribs gliding down, feel some weight in the breastbone, minimal movement to the pelvis. Inhale back. And exhale to curl up. So just kind of keep going at your own time and your own pace. So this is going to be kind of the foundation of our ab work today, and we can always layer up, and you can always peel back to this even if I don't tell you to. Yeah, so just kind of moving, right? Just waking up the abs, seeing how things feel, right? Right, and just checking in that as your chest lifts, the pelvis doesn't immediately go into a big tuck, right? It can stay fairly still. So you're using those lower abs, pelvic floor, those lower stability abdominals to create stillness in the pelvis and in the lower back. And then you're using your obliques, your upper abs, your middle abs to create some movement in the upper spine. Yep. Last one like this. So we curl on up, hold. Again, just check, right? The glutes are pretty relaxed. The tailbone's pretty heavy. On your next breath out, reach your right arm past your left knee. And then inhale back to center. Try to stay lifted. Exhale, left arm past the right knee. Yeah. And just keep going like this. So you're getting a little bit of rotation. Start to warm up the obliques a little bit more. And if you can, try to stay off both shoulder blades if possible. Big inhales, big exhales. Shoulders staying relatively soft out of the ears, right? Just make sure they're not creeping up too high. Yeah. And play around with that little bit of force through your breath out. Yeah, and I might hear it, I might not, but just notice if that kind of wakes up the abdominals and the obliques a little bit more. Yeah, and once you finish with your left arm to the right, just lower the head all the way down and still supported with the hands. So if you want to layer up, imprint the lower back, one leg at a time, floats up tabletop. So knees and hips about 90 degrees or so. And then as you exhale, curl the head and the chest back up, hold, inhale, grab the back of your thighs. Yeah, and then maybe just kind of wiggle off your shoulder blades just a touch, right? You don't have to be super high, but make sure they're not touching. On your next breath out, hands slowly reach back to support your head. And then on your next breath out, slowly lower the chest and the head to the ground. The legs will just stay nice and still. And then inhale, exhale, curl on up. Yeah, grab your thighs as you breathe in. Exhale, maybe lift up just a little higher. Try to maintain that height on your next breath out. Arms sweep around. The slower you go, the more room you take up, the harder it is. On your next breath out, lower down. So you're lowering from the abdominals. One more, inhale. Exhale, curl. Grab your thighs. Yeah, offload your abs by lifting up a little bit with your arms. On your next breath out, hands to the back of the head. Stay here this time. So this time, as you breathe out, tap your right heel towards the ground. Might touch, might not. Inhale it up. Exhale, left heel towards the ground. Keep on breathing. So you can stay here. You can also have your arms reaching forward, which will help lift you off your shoulders a little bit more. It'll also offload your upper abs slightly. You can have your head down on the ground. But wherever you're moving from, right, wherever your hands are, wherever your upper body is, make sure you feel your lower abs, your middle abs, your upper abs, all the abs are working, yeah? Oh yeah. Take one more to your left. And then rest. Hug the knees into the body. Nicely done. So it is cold in Portland today, so we should be starting to build up a little bit of heat. As your knees hug in, just take a little rock from side to side. And let your shoulders relax. And then send the left leg down to the ground. Keep the right leg hugging in towards you. And feel that your hip is flexing, right? So there's a crease at your hip, but without a ton of tension. And then float the right leg up to tabletop. So knees about over the hip, about 90 degrees or so. Grab the back of the thigh, lift the head and the chest. And now you're gonna go past tabletop a little. So I'm gonna push my thigh into my hands. So my knee is definitely a little bit past my hip. Tailbone's heavy, pelvis is still neutral. Take a breath in. Exhale, hands together behind the head, stay lifted. Yep. Now take your left heel, so the leg that's on the ground, push that heel down a little bit into the ground. Yeah, flex the foot so the front of this left hip is opening. Now look at your right knee, and as you exhale, just lift your left shoulder blade up a couple inches. It's almost gonna feel like your left elbow is going straight up to the sky. Inhale back to center, same side. Exhale, left shoulder blade lifts up just a couple inches. Oh yeah, inhale back. And it should kind of feel like from your left lower ribs across to the right hip, you're feeling some work, right? So working the obliques to help create that rotation. Now, this can also be done with one hand behind your thigh if you want a little bit of help, or if you want to offload slightly. Good. Yeah, and just one more like this. And lower everything to the ground, right leg included. Hug the left leg into your body for a moment. You can hug the front of the shin, the back of the thigh. But wherever you're hugging, just allow your hip crease to relax a little bit. So can you create hip flexion without a ton of hip tension? Imagine that left sitting bone is reaching down slightly. So there's some length in your waistline. Right foot flexed, heel into the ground, grab the back of the left thigh, press the leg into tabletop, lift the chest, and then that leg pushes a little bit past tabletop. So I'm using the leverage of my leg to lift off the shoulders. On a breath out, hands together behind the head, stay lifted. And then look at your knee, exhale, right shoulder blade lifts just a couple inches, inhale it back. And again, exhale. Yeah, you got it. Inhale it back. So same things apply here. You can use one hand behind the thigh if you want a little bit of help, or both hands behind the head. And again, now it's right ribs kind of crossing in a diagonal down towards left hip. Last two, right heel still rooting into the ground and the sense of it reaching a little bit away from you. After that last one, lower the head, hug both legs into the body. Nicely done. Let the knees open, let the feet open. Tailbone heavy, just let the inner hips, inner thighs get a bit of a stretch. And then pull the thighs back together. Hands behind the thighs, lift the head and the chest, hold. So more of a true tabletop here. We're just off the shoulders. Take another inhale. Exhale, hands together behind the head. Right, staying lifted. On your next breath out, right heel can tap down like we did before, or it can slide forward, keeping the feet the same height. Inhale it in. Left leg can slide forward. Inhale it in. So again, stay here if you want to peel it back. Heel taps. And this can also be done, right? So we can do these single leg reaches with our head on the ground. Just try to maintain that imprint throughout. So in other words, if your leg starts to go really far and your back starts to arc up and you lose that imprint, you've gone too far, right? So a couple more like this. Primary focus, right? It's the abs. Are we warming up? Sweet. All right, one more to the left whenever you get there. There's no rush. Once you finish that left side, hug the knees in, settle the feet down. And the feet can be shoulder distance on this to start with a little bit of a turnout. So it's not a classic bridge by any means. Curl the tailbone and slowly roll your hips to the sky. So this turned out wider bridge will give you a little bit more freedom in your lower back and in the front of your hips and thighs, especially if they're feeling a little tight from the weekend or from the last 2 weeks over the holidays. So once you're at the top, pause, knees, hips, shoulders, just kind of one ski sloping line. And we've got the abs warmed up, so feel that your abdominals and your obliques are helping to bring the rib cage down, while the glutes are helping to lift the pelvis up. And on your next breath out, roll it down. Upper spine, middle spine, lower spine, pelvis to neutral. Inhale. And again, exhale, curl, roll it on up. Yep, inhaling at the top. And then again, exhale, rolling it down. So it's that same articulation we were working on hands and knees in the very beginning of the class. One more like this. Curl, rolling towards the top. Holding again, feeling like the knees could stretch out over the centers of the feet. And then without moving or overarching from the lower back, use your glutes. Maybe lift the hips a little higher from the butt, not the back. Keep the ribs settling down. Take the arms up to the sky. And this time as you roll down, reach your arms overhead. So the armpits and the chest starts to stretch open. Good. Clasp the hands together behind the head. One last time. Walk the feet together. Imprint the lower spine. Legs float up one at a time. Tabletop. Lift the chest. So putting everything we've done so far together, as you exhale, twist to the right. Adding on, you can reach the left leg. Right, same foot height, 45 degrees or so. Inhale everything back to center. Exhale, twist left, right leg stretches. Inhale back. Exhale, twist right. Now this could still be a heel tap if you want to offload a little bit. So lots of different options here. Nice. So the full expression of obliques or crisscross or bicycle, right? There's a lot of different names and a lot of different movement practices for this one. Really nice for getting some heat into the body and good overall core strength. So one more to the left. And bring everything back. Hug the knees in. Nicely done. So as the knees hug into your chest, try to keep the tailbone fairly heavy to the ground. So again, you're working on that hip crease flexion without a ton of tension. And then settle the feet to the floor, feet hip distance. Curl the tail, roll back up into a bridge. So the feet are definitely narrower on this one. That inner hip bone or sit bone distance. As you lift, you might notice a bit more stretch in the front of your thighs, front of the hips. Keep some weight in your left leg. Exhale, the right heel or that whole right leg can float up through tabletop. And then lower it down. Put weight into the right leg, and then left leg can float up. So just keep marching it out, right? From side to side, and from your ribs to pelvis, right? Minimal movement. So all that core work, again, that we've already kind of warmed up to or built up, that's working to keep everything stable. And then whatever leg is still on the ground, those glutes should be doing quite a bit of work. Yep. Yeah. Nice. And just end to your last side. Yep. Once you finish your last side, both feet are heavy, roll it down, upper back, middle back, lower back. All the way down we go. Lovely. And then cross left ankle over right thigh. Press the left thigh a little forward. Hips are square. You can add on, you can hug the back of your right thigh or front of your right shin in towards you. Wherever you can hold on, where you don't feel a ton of shoulder tension or neck tension. And you want to start to feel a bit of a stretch in this outer left hip area. Yeah, just a breath or so into this, maybe rocking a bit from side to side. And then switching legs. So again, left foot can be on the ground, right thigh pressing forward gently, ankle over thigh. You can hug left thigh in towards you. Yep. And just a gentle hip stretch. Maybe rocking a little from side to side, just noticing what that feels like. Again, if the last couple of weeks, if you were enjoying with family, friends, and over the holidays, things might feel a little tighter today than normal. And find your center, hug the back of the legs in, nod the chin, roll yourself up to seated. If you're using a band today, grab your bands. So once it goes around your feet, if you use your thumbs, right, keep it pretty wide. You can use your thumbs to kind of wiggle it up over your knees and on your thighs. And the The goal of that is, right, you don't want this thing kind of twisting up and cutting off your circulation, right? It doesn't feel very good. All right, you could also use a band. You could tie it around, right? Just make sure your legs are together when you tie it. And then we're gonna come down onto one side facing me. Doesn't matter which one. Just make sure you can see me. And my knees are gonna be bent forward. My heels are in line with the back of the sit bones. Yeah, and your bottom arm can be long, it can be bent. Top hand onto the top hip. And you're just gonna let that top hip hike up a little bit towards your ribs, and then we're gonna draw it down slightly away from the ribs. So you wanna feel some length in the waistline and in this outer hip. And then lift the top thigh into the tension of the band and just hold there for a moment. So some people like toes and heels touching. Some people, it feels nice to have just the heels touching and the toes kind of lifting to the sky. Right, so wherever you feel more glute works, if you touch the back of the glutes, you wanna feel some tone there. Either foot position is fine. And then slowly lower down, try not to lose the tension of the band. And then press into the feet. So think of that top foot pushing down into your bottom foot as you lift into the band. Again, slowly lower. Try not to lose the resistance and lift. As you go up, make sure this isn't happening. The pelvis isn't rolling backwards. Yeah. Yep, keep going. And then for Eva, yeah, keep the feet together on this one. Yeah, there you go. Yep. And then for Aaron, feel just your top hip reach just a little forward or kind of roll a little forward. So just that, yeah, there you go. And then keep that as that leg goes up. Yep. Yeah. Good. Nice. So we should definitely be feeling glutes on this, yeah? Oh yeah. And it should feel deep and also not so deep, right? So glute max is definitely working on this. It's a big muscle. And then all the little hip rotator muscles are working as well to help set the joint. So just one more like this. Good. So now lift the thigh, hold. So keeping the tension in the band, I'm gonna take my foot and just lift it towards the sky. And I'm gonna pause here. So my thigh, my shin, my foot, everything's about parallel to the ground. I'm gonna reach back a little bit, keeping my knee bent. So my knee, top knee is about 90 degrees. I've reached back slightly to help open the hip. Now as I exhale, I'm gonna rotate my foot to the sky. So internal rotation, inhale back to center, keep the tension. Again, exhale, rotate your thigh in. So right, the foot kicks to the sky and we bring it back to center. So this is still glute work. It's still deep hip work to create this internal rotation. Now, just depending on, right, the way you're built, we're all built a little different. You might have more or less than me or your neighbor. But again, right, this should feel a little bit deeper, kind of a little bit more in the side of the glutes. It might get a little crampy if it's been a little while since you've done this, or if this is new, right? These smaller muscles can definitely get a little tired. 2 more. Yeah, last one. And then bring everything down and just kind of rub out the side of the hip a little bit. And then the top leg goes long. So we still have that band. Ribs are gently in, belly's gently in. I'm gonna lift my leg up about hip height. So for Rudd, if this one doesn't feel good, once you come onto that left side, just go back into those clams for me. Top foot is softly pointed. Now still working into this outer glute, outer hip. I'm gonna try to lift up just a little bit higher without letting the hip hike. And then I'm gonna drop down almost all the way to the ground. So it's a lift, about hip height, and then a little bit higher, and then controlling it down. So I'm still feeling glutes on the way down. All right, core is set. And again, same with this abduction, right? We're all built a little different. And especially in parallel versus turnout, you're not gonna have the same range of motion that you would if you were in a turnout. So just keep that in mind, right? About 2 or 3 more, right? Deep kind of side of the glute work, side of the hip area. Yep. Working on the way up and on the way down. Last one. And then just let everything rest. Again, just kind of rub out the side of the hip there. Nice. All right, so still staying on this side, we're gonna prop ourselves up onto our bottom forearm, elbow about under shoulder. Top hand underneath the armpits. So grab onto your ribs, sink down a little, right? It might feel kind of nice, but we want to work into it. So push down into your forearm, lift your ribs. And you should feel that there's some work under this armpit rib area. You want to keep that on and then maybe lift the hips off the ground. My knees, my feet are still on the ground, but I'm increasing the load and the work in the shoulder and the armpit, the base of the ribs, and even your bottom glutes. So I'm thinking of actively pushing my knees and my legs down to work these bottom glutes. Now, top arm can always reach to the sky, right? And then top hand can come down, hips can come down. Set your shoulder first, right? It's not all the way up, it's down a little and back slightly. Push into the forearm, push into the legs, lift the hips, lift your arm. So that whole sideline is working. And then everything lowers. Yep, set the shoulder again, everything lifts. So this is a nice kind of prep or just a different side plank. I think it's just as hard as regular side planks, honestly. Yeah, one more like this. Right, shoulders should be starting to get a little bit tired. Lower waistline should be getting tired. Hold here. Now, if you want to increase the work for the glutes, lift your thigh, knee, and foot. So it's going to increase the work not only in your top glute, but also in your bottom glutes. And that extra resistance is going to create a little bit more work in the waistline and in the shoulder. Holding for 5, keep breathing. 4, 3, 2, on 1, let everything come down, sit up, and switch sides. Nice job. Okie dokie. So heels in line with the back of the sit bones, knees forward, bottom arm can be long or bent, so you could use a pillow. All right. So once you're here, set yourself up again. So you can allow this top hip to hike up slightly and then reach it down a bit. So there's a sense of weight, length in both sides of the waist. Stomach set, top leg lifts into the tension, hold. So this is where you want to feel that top foot pushing down into your bottom foot to help leverage the thigh open. And if you reach back and touch the glutes, there should be some tone there. Inhale it down slowly. Try not to lose the tension. Set the stomach. Exhale, lift. And then inhale, control it down. And you might notice right away that one side feels really different than the other. And that's pretty typical, right? Might feel stronger, might feel more tired, or just less coordinated, right? The two sides of the hips are sometimes like two different planets. Just check in, your shoulders are pretty easy, your core is lightly set. There isn't anything really overly braced or gripping. And you definitely feel your glutes. Yep. Last 3. We're still breathing. Last 2. And on this last one, hold at the top, lift your foot. So your thigh, shin foot parallel to the ground, knee bent 90 degrees, push back a little bit so the front of the hip opens slightly, and then rotate your leg in, kicking your foot to the sky. Inhale back to center. Exhale, rotate your thigh in. Now, as this starts to get tired, your body will want to stop doing the internal rotation and it'll want to just start lifting up like this. It'll just go into that abduction. So make sure as you do this, right, you're still getting that internal spiral, exactly. So that foot is lifting higher than the thigh and the knee. Oh yeah. So these are really small, deep glute muscles. Last 3. Sometimes a little bit forgotten about, right? We want to give them some attention. Last 1. And then rest for a moment. You can rub out that outer hip. All right, we all felt that? Sweet. All right. Moving right along, top leg goes out long. Make sure it's in line with the rest of the body. Softly point the foot. Start by lifting about hip height. And then as you exhale, lift just a little bit higher than that hip height. So just check in that that top hip bone doesn't kind of hike up like this. Lower down so you're barely touching the floor. And then again, lift. So even on the down, feel that those outer hip muscles, those outer glute muscles are working to control you down and to lift you up. Yep. And again, parallel for most people, you're not going to have the same, quite the same height as a turnout, right? Yeah. And just check that you're not overly bracing really anywhere, right? You don't feel like this braced or really rigid sensation in the torso, the shoulders, the neck, or the jaw. Good, last two. This looks nice. Last one. Next time you come down, just rub out that hip a little bit. Nice. And we can bend the knees in, prop yourself up onto your bottom forearm. Bottom hand under the armpit, right? Sinking down just a little bit to start. And then pushing into the forearm, lifting. So again, kind of this armpit area, rib line is working with the shoulder. And you can stay here or lift the hips, right? Feet are in line with hips. Top arm can go up. So now the shoulder, the under waistline, the under hip line, all of this is working. You might feel your bottom glutes more on this side just because they've already worked, right? We already did that other side. Inhale, everything comes down, right? Avoid the bottom shoulder overly lifting now. Exhale, set, forearm, legs, lift. Yep. And then inhale, bring it down with control. Nice. Setting shoulder, lifting. So can you feel the back of your shoulder on this, right? Not just the top, not just the front. Can you feel a little bit of the back side of the shoulder blade? Or you might just feel everything, like I'm feeling right now. Couple more. And then on this last one, we'll hold at the top. And if you want to add on, right? Forearm set, bottom leg set, maybe top thigh, knee, foot lifts. So you're putting a little bit more tension and load really throughout the whole body. Holding, breathing for another 3, 2, and 1. Lower everything down. We can come up. We can ditch this band. We're done with this thing. Goodbye, band. All right. And then we're going to come up onto the knees. So make sure you have, if you're at home on a yoga mat on a hard surface, flip your mat if you want a little bit more cushion, or just make sure you have a blanket or something. And you want some room from side to side, right? So make sure you're not going to hit someone or something. And eventually you want to take your left leg and reach it out, right? So my right leg is underneath me, so knee is right under the hip. My left leg is long, and I'm going to lean away from it, right? So I'm leaning away from that top leg a little. Yeah. Now feel your waistline draw in, and it's going to feel like your pubic bone is lifting and your tailbone's kind of dropping down. And then bottom hand to the top ribs, right under the armpit. And then as you exhale, lift your top arm up. Maybe it reaches over your head. So it's increasing the work in the side of your rib line. Inhale that arm down. And again, exhale, top arm lifts. Yep. Inhale it down. And then for Nancy, feel the lower ribs draw in just a little bit. Yeah, pubic bone up slightly. There you go. So you want to feel, right? It's obliques helping to stabilize. Yeah, and then for Aaron, switch the arm that's lifting. Yeah, there you go. Nice. That's a version. That's just a really hard one. Yeah, there you go. So just take one more like this. Lift up, hold. So if you want to add on, this top arm has lifted. Now your bottom arm, maybe it reaches up. We hold, right? This is if you want to advance. It comes back to where you started. So every time it reaches, right, the outer side of your obliques, your ribs have to do a little bit more work. 2 more. Make sure you can still breathe. Last one. And then both arms come down by your side. That bottom hand drops to the floor. It's going to walk out a decent amount. So as this top arm walks away from you, you're going to get to a point where the top leg just kind of naturally lifts. Maybe not naturally, but it lifts, right? There's work there. Your hips are still fairly stacked, right? I'm not kind of lean back into my pelvis. My hips are forward. Now in a perfect world, maybe not a perfect world, but In a perfect Pilates picture world, the bottom knee would be right under the hip. For me, that doesn't work without creating a whole lot of cramping in both of my hips. So if you want to try to go for that, like a little bit more here, you can try to measure that up. If it feels nicer to have this arm a little bit away, that's fine. Top leg stays long. We're going to lower it down. And then as we exhale, that top leg is lifting back up, right? So it's the same thing we did on our side with the band, except now really the whole body is integrated into this, right? Top hand anywhere you want it. As a reminder, on the ribs, it can reach to the sky, right? It can go behind your head, which is a little bit more classic. So anywhere you want it is A-okay. Just make sure you feel this top thigh, top glutes, top hip working to lift your leg. And you might notice your bottom leg is working as well. Bottom waistline's working. Last one. Lower that leg down, toes forward, foot's all the way on the ground. Top arm overhead, let the head be heavy, and just stretch out that top waistline. So the whole spine is in a little bit of a side bend. And then just slowly start to reach down into a child's pose. Maybe the knees open a little bit more than that initial one we started with. And just a couple of breaths in through the nose, out through the mouth. So a bit of a back stretch and a glute stretch. Lovely, lovely. And then rise back up onto the knees. So opposite leg goes long, toes forward. And I didn't mention this on the other side, but this leg can be a little bit turned out as well if this outer hip crease just gets really crampy. And then we're just gonna lean away from that top leg. My bottom knee on this one is directly under the hips, right? You're not leaning back, but my hips are pressing forward. That bottom glute is on. Now your bottom hand, grab onto the top of the ribs. Exhale, the top arm lifts. Yeah, maybe just to the sky, maybe overhead. And then inhale that arm down. Yeah, you got it, nice. Exhale, top arm lifts. Yeah, and this bottom hand is just kind of cueing you into these obliques. So you feel that there's some tone here as this arm is going up, right? Your body has to react to it. Yep, keep that lower waistline lifting, lower ribs, right? There's that connection. And I'm still thinking of rooting down into my bottom leg. Now, if you want to add on, exhale the top arm up, right? Just somewhere up, right? Overhead's going to be the hardest. And then your next breath out, your bottom arm lifts, it meets for a moment, and then it drops back down to where it started. So it's an exhale, we set, lift, reach, bring it down. So hello, waistline. Exhale, lift. Inhale back to where we started. Exhale, lift. Inhale back one more time. Exhale, lift. This time, both arms drop down. That bottom arm is going to reach right a decent amount away from you for now. You might decide you want to bring it in a little closer, which is fine. Top leg lifts, hold. Yeah, legs still fairly parallel on this. Top arm maybe at the ribs, maybe at the sky. Lower that top leg down. And then as you exhale, lift it up. Right? Exhaling up. And as this leg lifts, there really isn't any other movement in the body. And you notice a lot of Pilates, right? It's a lot of stabilize something, don't move it while you're moving through something else. Yeah, and if you wanted hand behind head on this one, right, a little bit more of the classic stack. Again, if things are on the tighter side, it's okay to be here as well. Last 4. Yep, controlling it up. Controlling it down. Last 2. Good work. Last 1. Lower down, top arm overhead, foot to the floor, toes forward. The whole body's in a side stretch. We're breathing into it. Into the nose, out to the mouth, and then bringing everything down into child's pose. And relaxing. You can use the hands to press the hips towards the heels. So you're increasing that stretch. Good. Yeah, and then wherever you're at, just start to walk your arms forward. Narrow the knees to about shoulder distance, legs parallel. And your hips are going to be about over your knees. So my hips are definitely lifted. And then you can start to drop your forehead towards the ground, and you can start to lengthen your arms out. So my hands are pushing into the ground. I don't really have that much pressure on my head. And as my arms are pushing into the ground, I'm thinking of a stretch under the armpit and work in my upper back. So it's a nice way you can start to get a little bit of upper back extension. Now, if this feels kind of awkward in the back or painful in the shoulders, you might let your hips come back just a little bit more into like a child's pose position. You can also stack your head on a block or a pillow, or take your hands a little wider. So lots of different options. Take 2 more full breaths. As you breathe in, feel your upper back widening, feel your armpits widening. And as you breathe out, feel a little bit of that connection to your lower abs and your lower ribs. And then press yourself up to hands and knees, round your spine once like a cat. And just let that all stretch out for a moment, relaxing into the hips, relaxing into the glutes. And then just open to neutral, make your way onto your stomach. Down we go. So upper back should be prepped. Arms are going to reach out to a T. And the nose can be about an inch off the ground. If it's comfortable, you can let your forehead drop to the floor. But if it's not, just nose about an inch off the ground is fine. Relax the hips, maybe give them a little wiggle from side to side. Find a place that's even. Anchor the pubic bone, lift your lower tummy, and then float just the head off the ground, and then push down into your hands and hover the chest up a little higher. And the goal on this is we're trying to find upper back movement without too much lower back movement yet. Keep pressing into the hands and imagine they're reaching outward. On your next breath out, lower the chest and the head to the ground. And then again, set your stomach, set the pubic bone, float the head up, upper spine, and then middle spine follows. Press into your palms and feel like your fingers were trying to reach out. So there's this width in your upper shoulders and your upper back. And one more time, bring it down. And again, set your stomach, a little bit of deep glute, hover up. And then hold here. So make sure you feel that the lower ribs are on the ground and the base of your breastbone, right? You feel that connection, and you might have to come down a little lower for it. On your next breath out, set your stomach and then see if you can lift your hands off the ground, feeling the back of your shoulders and the inner shoulder blades and upper back, and then lower just your hands. The chest and head will stay in the same position. And then exhale, set your stomach. So this is just as much about your core stabilizing as it is about your upper back and your middle back working, your shoulders working, and your shoulder blades. Again, if you need a little reset for the lower back, just come down, take a break, come back into it when you're ready. Last 2. Last 1. And lower everything down. Hands under the forehead, bend the knees. Windshield wiper the feet from side to side. And let the pelvis move with you. Let your legs rotate in and out. Lovely. And then come back to center. So your hands can go back to this T position, or they can reach overhead. So hands are a little bit wider than shoulder distance. Just kind of imagine your arms are in a big Y position. Nose can be an inch off the ground, or forehead can be down. Anchor the pubic bone, lift the low tummy. And then as you inhale, float the head and the chest up and just gently push into the hands. So kind of a similar feeling to what we did in that child's pose-esque position. And on your next breath out, left leg and right arm float up and just hold here. Now, whatever limbs, right, limbs that are on the ground, gently push those limbs down and see if you feel more work in the limbs that are lifted. And then lower, the chest still stay lifted, lower the limbs, exhale, left arm, right leg lift. Right, the limbs that are still on the ground, gently push them down a little bit and lengthen them away from you. And see if you feel more work in the limbs that are lifted. And then the limbs lower, just keep alternating slowly. So this is a slow swim, right? If we were swimming this slow in the water, we'd sink. But here, We'll go nice and slow. The whole back side of the body is working. Back of the shoulders, shoulder blades into the spinal muscles, down to the opposite leg, hip, hamstrings, all the rest. Yep. Yeah, just a couple more. Neck just staying long, jaw staying relaxed. Eventually ending with the right arm and left leg lifting, or whatever your opposite side might be. And then everything lowers. Hands under the shoulders, push on back, child's pose. Maybe knees together this time if you want to explore a different stretch in your spine. Hold and breathe. Nice. And then rise up to hands and knees. All right, spread the fingers. If you're on a really thick mat, the wooden floor might be nicer on your wrists, right? So just keep that in mind. Shoulders are set, they're wide, tummy's in, one leg at a time can step into plank. Feet and thighs together. Now this can also be knees down plank, so low plank. This can be forearm plank. This can be forearm plank with the knees lifted. So pick your plank, right? Feel this slight lift of your lowest ribs. And your hips won't lift, your body won't lift, but just the sense of lift through your low ribs and your low tummy. Push into the arms and push into the feet. So feel the front of your thighs are on, your shoulders, your arms, your biceps, triceps, all of it. And there's a sense of your heels reaching back and the crown of your head reaching a little forward. And all that space in the middle has to work. Keep breathing for 5, 4, 3, 2, down dog or child's pose, your choice. Totally your choice. Take a big breath wherever you're at. Nice. And then rise up, hands and knees. And then eventually you can come through down dog to make your way to standing. Right, so forward fold into standing, but just make your way up. Good. Oh, good. We're doing good. All right. So for balance, if you want more challenge for your balance, stay on your mat. Less challenge, come off of your mat. And then starting just with the feet a little narrower than hip distance. And just shift your weight a little forward and a little bit back. Yep. And if you notice you generally need a little bit of help with balance, if you're barefoot on a harder surface, it's going to help wake up your proprioceptive system. So just keep that in mind. Barefoot on a harder surface is going to give you just a little bit more help and feedback if you want it. So find the place where you're centered over your feet and then just shift a little bit from side to side. Yeah, and you'll feel some outer hip muscles turn on. You'll feel the kind of muscles in your outer shins start to turn on, right? So again, find a place that feels pretty centered. Root into one leg, hands to the hip bones, bend the opposite leg, minimal movement to the body, right? There's going to be a little, but for the most part, right, hips are still stacked or still square rather. Shoulders are square, we're nice and tall. Lower that leg down, and then opposite leg lifts. Yeah. And whatever leg you're standing on, if you touch into that outer kind of hip glute area, it's those same muscles you were doing in all of your side leg work with the bands, right? With the straight leg, just one more each side. So just feeling, right, when you're balancing, you definitely feel some glute work, inner thigh work, right? All the rest. Good. And then release that for a moment and then just step one foot in front of the other. Doesn't matter which one. So you're on a pretty narrow tightrope, right? If it gets too shaky, just take the feet a little wider. Right? I don't know if it's a good or bad sign. I'm already shaking like crazy. So knees a little bit bent. We're nice and tall, right? Find some point in the distance to focus on, preferably something not moving. And then make sure your weight's even, right? So if you shift forward, shift back, weight's even across the feet. Waistline's in a little bit, legs aren't locked, and arms can always reach out to the side. You can always hold on to something too. At any point, if you want more challenge, close one eye or both eyes. And you'll start to feel kind of that proprioceptive system kick in, right? So all that movement, all that little kind of twitching in your lower legs and your feet, it's your body trying to figure out where you are in space. And that's good, right? Keep breathing in through nose, out through mouth. Easing into the shoulders, the jaw, the neck. Now open your eyes. If they're closed, step your back leg forward. And then shift, right? Forward and back. Find a place where you're centered. Ease into the shoulders, right? Imagine if I was going to lift you up by one strand of hair at the top of your head, right? You can get a little bit longer. Maybe close one eye, maybe close both eyes. Feel that there's still this connection of your toes and the balls of the feet and the heels to the ground, but the foot itself, it's mobile, right? It's kind of adapting to where you are in relationship to gravity. Just one or two more breaths. And then open your eyes, step back to feet about inner hip distance again. Right, knees slightly bent. Hips square, bend your right leg. So that right leg is lifted. Maybe hold onto a chair or wall or surface. But I'm going to hinge my torso a little forward. So I'm hinging into my left hip joint. Now, this doesn't have to be huge, right? This doesn't have to be like a full arabesque or warrior three, but push into your standing leg. And if you touch the back of that glute and hamstrings, do you feel some tone bringing you back up, right? So again, hinging, not from the lower back, from your hip joint. Yeah, it doesn't have to be far. Ooh. Might lose your balance, that's cool. Bring it back up. But here's your hip extension that we were working with on the ground. So you're just kind of putting it into practice of, how does this all relate when we come back up to standing? Yeah, and then switch sides. And your core is just helping to stabilize, right? Ribs, torso, all the rest. So a little bit of a bend in the leg. You're hinging now through right hip. And then pushing into the ground, right? Feeling glutes, hamstrings to help bring you back. Yeah. Breathe in. And you might notice one side's a little easier, one side's a little harder, right? Pretty typical. Yeah, just one or two more. And say about the last one right here. Good. Bring it all the way up to standing. Shake out your arms a bit. Shake out the legs a little bit. Feet hip distance or together. Together is more challenge on your hamstring length and your balance. Relaxing the shoulders, nod your chin, and just start to roll it down. Just as far as comfortable, knees bent a little bit is fine. Ooh, and just let things be heavy. Good. Big inhales, big exhales. And on your inhales, feel like your ribs are expanding, literally feel like they're lifting. And then on your exhale, feel the weight of your breath kind of carrying you a little bit closer to the floor. And on your next breath out, root into your feet, slowly start to roll up. Feel that connection to the legs, the pelvis, the core, the torso. Allow the head to come up last. And we'll end you there today. Nicely done. If you have any questions, let me know. Thanks for coming. First class of 2022.